wasn't gonna stand for what that man did to my family, to our life. I thought I was shooting him. But it was Zeke. It was fucking Zeke.
No More Second Chances was the title of episode 5, and unfortunately for Lorenzo, Monet wasn't in the mood to give any second chances. In arguably the most brutal kills in Power Book 2 Go so far, we saw the end of Lorenzo, we saw Gordo slicing his throat from behind, and for a split second I thought they may not even reveal the killer, but they did that earlier on in the episode when Gordo said he would slice the throat of whoever was responsible for his father's death. And we are going to get to Lorenzo's death and the events of episode 5 in a lot more detail later on in this video, but is America the land of rebirth? I think that was a perfect topic, and that set the theme for No More Second Chances. Built on immigration and the idea of a fresh start for newcomers, that was the question: was America the land of rebirth and reinvention, where people from diverse backgrounds can come in for a fresh start, pursue their dreams and achieve whatever they believe they can through hard work? But is it fair for all? What about Rebecca Weston and how she mentioned Brayden? It was similar to what Tariq said in episode 2. For admitting that he was a drug dealer in open court, he was rewarded with a 6-figure salary at Western Holdings, whereas for Tariq St Patrick, he still continues to pay the price for what happened in season 2. Reinvention is a privilege based on who you are, but as Rashad Tate said, second chances is the foundation of America, and Tariq said something similar: they all deserve one despite their decisions. And in relation to the events of episode 5, Evelyn was in more of a forgiving mood than Monet, but she definitely wasn't giving any second chances to Lorenzo after putting the hit out on his father to 3 of her kids, which would completely change the complexion for the Tejadas, and this is where we're gonna start. Episode 5 kicks off with law enforcement all over the Tejada household after what Monet did to Detective Whitman at the end of episode 4. We've got Jenny questioning Monet what do you think Detective Whitman wanted, but Monet's got a perfect cover story. Whitman was stalking her, he harassed her, vandalized her car, which was all documented by Davis, but Jenny wasn't buying it, which is when Lorenzo stepped in and said she's the victim, not the suspect. Now an accessory to this murder was Diana, whose story lines up with Monet, but Cooper Saxe, who's working undercover for Jenny as a CI, needs to be careful, but more on his moves later on. Now Davis did end this meeting at the Tejadas by telling Monet to be careful about her next moves, because you never know who could be watching, but her next move was focused on Lorenzo. She told Davis that she got rid of the witness files they stole from Whitman, and how she was jumping to conclusions on Lorenzo, but Monet never shows her hand, and that was a direct quote that came from Lorenzo himself in episode 5. So her move was to find out where IG was the night of Zeke's death, because he did mention before Monet put 7 rounds into his chest, he wasn't in town the night of Zeke's murder, and this is where Tariq's connection to Tate came into play. Tariq knew he was talking to Blanca Rodriguez, and he fed him the information to find out whether this was true, which of course, as we all know, was false. Tariq St Patrick is the only one Monet can trust because of everything that's happened in the past, and he was also with her when Zeke was shot. So as Tariq tells Monet, IG didn't kill Zeke, she starts to dig a little more.
Lorenzo told you IG killed Zeke. Well, what kind of proof he had?
He said whoever attacked Drew was the same motherfucker that killed Zeke.
Now Kane definitely stayed true to his word and kept Lorenzo's secret safe, but Monet wasn't buying it. She knew something wasn't right. Now something I feel they did a great job in episode 5 was humanizing Lorenzo. In season 1, he looked like a boss sat in the prison cell, calling all the shots. In season 2, we learned that he wasn't exactly as powerful as he made out, and he had very similar flaws to Kane, making these quick decisions without thinking about the consequences. In season 3, Lorenzo is someone who knows he made a mistake, and he genuinely feels remorse. It was a genuine attempt to kill Mecca to protect his family, because that's all he's ever wanted. He protects and leads. But Kane tells Lorenzo that Monet's still looking into Zeke's death, because she knows IG didn't do it. And has he ever thought about just telling Monet the truth? Because if she's figuring all this stuff out now, it's better it comes from Lorenzo, and I definitely agree. Lorenzo should have told Monet a lot more sooner than he did, but I think the outcome would have been the same anyway. Now while Monet was looking into Zeke's death, and as Lorenzo ponders telling Monet the truth, Gordo got a tip that Tucker was a CI and he was still alive. So he and Drew went to finish the job, but they were too late. Law enforcement were crawling all over the hospital, and they had to buy their time, and they got their break when they found out Tucker didn't make it, and his belongings were sent to the front desk. And by bribing the lady at the front desk, they were able to get rid of some crucial evidence that would have given Blanca Rodriguez and Jenny Sullivan's RICO a solid foundation to build on. So for now, they're not exactly in the clear, but this evidence is at least gone. Back to Monet, who visits Evelyn Castillo. She sits Evelyn down and she tells her that she knew what happened to Uncle Frank, and that's all Evelyn ever wanted. She wanted peace and closure, because for all she knows is Uncle Frank left and he vanished without a trace. Now Uncle Frank was Evelyn's wife who came into the Tejada's house after he was released for snitching. Monet knew it, and so did Tariq St Patrick. He told Kane that snitches get out quickly and quietly, and it wasn't Lorenzo who put the hit out on Uncle Frank, it was Monet. Lorenzo didn't know that Frank was getting out, otherwise he would have told Monet, but that's not what she told Evelyn.
Lorenzo put a hit out on Frank when he found out he snitched.
She was giving this information to Evelyn in the hope that she'd do the job without Monet having to get her hands dirty, because not only would her kids never be able to forgive her, she was also on the radar of law enforcement. Now, Evelyn doesn't bite, albeit she knows the street code. She can't bear to lose any more of her family trying to seek revenge. She was looking at the bigger picture and looking at what was best for a family that she still has. Now, for Monet, she still had everybody sitting around this dinner table, something we haven't seen after the bombshell that Diana dropped in episode 8, and you could tell she felt a little out of place, pretty much what Diana's been feeling for the first half of season 3. She tells Lorenzo at the back it's good to talk about something other than business, which is by the way something that was drawing too much attention from her boss Salim, someone else who we still need to keep an eye on. But again, this is where they really did a great job in humanizing Lorenzo.
You think I grew up wanting to sell drugs? Baseball. That was my game.
Lorenzo never wanted to be in the game either, but sometimes you can't pick and choose where you're from or what you're given, similar to how everybody was given different advantages when they grow up, which is a lesson from the classroom scene in episode 4. So Lorenzo had a life that he wanted to live which was besides the game, and he didn't want Diana to end up in a similar situation that he was in, so he pulled the plug on her pushing weight, and he said she's going to be the first person in this family to get a college degree, and look how happy she is. She really is daddy's girl, which is why she's going to be absolutely heartbroken when she finds out Lorenzo's dead, and she's going to throw the blame in Monet's direction, and she'll definitely have a good reason for doing so. Now, when Monet failed to convince Evelyn to kill Lorenzo, she was thinking about her next move, but Gordo came in and apologized for missing Zeke's funeral, and they shared something in common. They lost a loss of loved one, and suffering this pain, hurt, and anger. Gordo said that the pain does dilute, but it's always going to be there, but the anger, that's different.
If I had the chance, I'd slit the throat of the motherfucker who killed my father.
Now, this was the moment we should have known who was about to kill Lorenzo, but again, something the writers did a great job at doing in episode 5 was making us feel sorry for Lorenzo. He opened up to Monet and told her that he killed Zeke, but it was an accident. He went to kill Mecca at the hangar because she never came back, and he couldn't stand for what Mecca did to their family. And honestly, this just shows who Lorenzo is. He's always family first. But Monet wants Lorenzo gone and out of New York, and the story that they'd give to their kids was they were splitting up. But of course, we all know Monet had other plans. While Monet kept her hands clean and playing her cards with the 3 kids, she sent Gordo to carry out the hit on Lorenzo. We saw Lorenzo outside Zeke's memorial, the place where Gordo came from behind to slash his throat, and as blood continues to pour out of Lorenzo's neck, and as he struggles to breathe, Gordo tells him bleed for what he did to his father, and what a way for Lorenzo to go, outside of Zeke's memorial. Now, Lorenzo's bombshell wasn't the only one in episode 5, the other was Lauren, but we are going to start with a trip to Italy. They mentioned an Italian investment opportunity which is a company named Navona, and with Tariq putting in some research on the company, as well as him being able to speak Italian, RSJ wanted Tariq to join their little business trip. So with Effie specializing in robotics, RSJ was also happy for Tariq to bring Effie along, and she had some valuable information that was crucial for RSJ. The company had issues with their pattern, but something I want to focus on is this.
Well, if I was judged by who I was when I was 19, people wouldn't trust me today either.
RSJ definitely seems to have a past, and the more we meet him, the more I want to know more. But this is where Brayden also seems to have fucked up. He dropped his phone, and as Kiki picks it up, she sees crash coins being deposited to Brayden, which is how they get paid for no cap, all frap. So Kiki is definitely someone to watch. Now, as they jet off to Italy, it's all smiles between Tariq and Effie for now, but that is about to change in more ways than one. After RSJ was able to negotiate a deal with the Italian tech firm, showing skills in negotiation and business, we turn back to the game. Effie and Tariq were having a date where they said they were finally able to breathe, because when they're back in New York, it's all system goes in terms of college and working for Nomar, but just as Tariq mentioned they were going to get out of this life with Effie, they were given a stark reminder, the game follows you wherever you go. Nomar and Obi sit down and she was intrigued to find out why 2 of her favorite contractors were hopping on a private jet to Milan, but her interest actually peaked when she found out the jet belonged to RSJ. So while they were in Italy, they needed to find the missing listening device that was planted by Mecca, and this is where they questioned Tariq about how there's been no arrest in regards to his murder, and I don't think Nomar's gonna let this one go. She wants to find the one responsible, so I do wonder if she'll come face to face with Monet, who was the one who pulled the trigger at some point in season 3. Now, Effie said why couldn't they just intercept it and get the audio file, but the reason why they couldn't was because it was located in Francesco Lombardi's mansion. Francesco Lombardi wasn't just an oil giant, but he was one of Nomar's exes, who also happens to be one of her biggest arms competitors, and Mecca planted a bug in one of his rooms, but where they couldn't get anywhere near his place, RSJ was someone who could. Now, RSJ and Tariq definitely have an interesting relationship. He said that he'd be lying if he wasn't familiar with Tariq's story and his father, and where Tariq said he never really knew his father, RSJ said it sounds as if he had at least two faces, one public and one private, but doesn't everyone? For example, in the case of episode 5, Francesco Lombardi, to the rest of Europe he was an oil giant, but privately he was one of the biggest weapon distributors. In the case of RSJ, his father was a criminal who ran numbers, and everyone said that RSJ would end up just like him, but he didn't let their expectations box him in. He chose his own route, and he does hope that Tariq St Patrick does the same. Now, I don't think this is the end of Tariq and RSJ. In fact, I think we're just scratching the surface when it comes to RSJ's past, so that is something just to bear in mind. But back to what they were actually here for. Brayden finding the listening device under the table, but when he was caught, he was taken, and how Effie was able to smooth talk her way out of the same room. The same couldn't be said about Brayden. He was taken to a private room where he was beaten for some answers around who he worked for, and Francesco Lombardi said he's done his research and he knows he was a drug dealer and a Western, but his surname holds no credentials in Italy. From Brayden's perspective, he's loyal and he doesn't talk, maybe because he's seen at firsthand what Nomar did to Raki when she mentioned Nomar's name in episode 1, so maybe that was also running through Brayden's mind. Now, with Brayden missing and time being of the essence, Tariq and Effie knew they only had one play, use a recording device as leverage, but they needed Nomar's help. So with Francesco Lombardi having a gun to Tariq's head, in came Nomar and Obi with a few snipers out high, wiping out Francesco Lombardi and his men. Now this was Tariq St Patrick's plan, one which Nomar called him a genius for, and his trial period was now complete. And notice Tariq looking at Obi, where Obi was in disbelief, and I genuinely get the feeling that Nomar will take that much of a liking to Tariq St Patrick. Eventually I wouldn't be surprised if she wanted him as his right hand man, but the same could also be said about RSJ. So I think we're going to find Tariq in a bit of a conflict, but one where they could possibly get out from Nomar's thumb is the use of her Achilles heel, her daughter that she had with Francesco Lombardi, but that is a very dangerous game to play with someone like Nomar. Now, this episode isn't over for Tariq St Patrick, but we can't tie in Lauren's reveal without starting with law enforcement. Blanca Rodriguez, Jenny, and Cooper Saxe have a drink on Detective Whitman, and Jenny's had enough of Cooper Saxe, but this is a position that Cooper Saxe has been in before, losing people from the task force, and we do have to be fair to Saxe, he did warn Jenny in season 2. Later in the episode, as Cooper Saxe finds something they can use to get out Theo out of prison, he noticed Davis putting a file in his drawer, and he held back as Davis went to go visit Theo. So he went into Davis's drawer to find a copy of the police file that he stole from Whitman. But notice this clue, this lady at the desk made a call and looked directly at Cooper Saxe, and I think she may have told Davis that he was in his office snooping around, something that's gonna get Saxe into some big trouble with Davis. And I don't think Jenny has use for him either. She continues to ignore his calls, which makes him follow her, which only leads him to Lauren. He tells her that he's been putting his legal career on the line to go with her theory that Tariq St Patrick wanted Lauren dead, when he knows full well he didn't do it. And this is the moment that Lauren came out and Saxe couldn't believe it. But he continued by saying Jenny betrayed him and she was also manipulating Lauren, and how she doesn't have a legal right to keep Lauren. But not only that, Saxe saw how he reacted when he found out Lauren died. Tariq didn't try to kill Lauren, he definitely loved her. So as Tariq gets a text in the night from an unknown number which belongs to Lauren, he thinks it was his mom, but I don't think he was ready for what he was about to see on the south campus of Stansfield, Lauren. Now this is where Lauren questions Tariq about whether he was involved in the plan to kill her, and how Effie took her, knocked her out and dumped her in a river, but Tariq had no idea what she was talking about, and Tariq said she cared about Lauren, and that's the reason why he sent her with Brayden, and how he'd never do anything to hurt her. And this was the moment Tariq realized they lied to him. But Tariq had so many questions because he couldn't believe Lauren was standing in front of him. He questioned where was she, how's she alive, it was like seeing a ghost. Now Lauren tells Tariq that she's been with the feds and they've been building a case against Tariq, but how Lauren and the feds aren't the only people he should be worried about. Those around him have lied to him, and there's also Cooper Saxe. Seeing Tariq get back into bed with Effie, he's keeping his claws really close to his chest, and Effie says she wanted to tell him something before, but what she tells him isn't what she wanted to tell him in episode 4.
I love you too.
So Effie really has fallen for Tariq, but her world is about to come crashing down, and this Lauren secret as well as Lorenzo's death is going to cause absolutely chaos for everyone. So drop all your thoughts down below on all things episode 5, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.